Hey folks, today we're going to be going over this video by Hovind. And we're just going to dive right into it.
Multicellular and so forth. Is it possible for a single-celled organism to become multicellular, or are single-celled always single-celled? Andy, yes, single-celled always produce single-celled. Now I Googled it because I saw your question ahead of time. How did single-celled organisms become multicellular?
This is already wrong, and we're, he probably said it, 15 seconds in. We have literally witnessed multicellular life evolving from single-cellular life. This is the experiment. It's called Experimental Evolution in Alternating Uni and Multicellular Life Cycle in Chlamydomonas reinhardtii. The point of this study, or the result of this study, was that this single-celled algal species was put into certain conditions, and it gave birth to a multicellular species of this algae. It doesn't get more clear-cut than that. Settling selection. So, these cells were subjected to conditions in which larger colonies would be favored, such as settling conditions or predation conditions. They actually had this happen. This exact same evolution happened under introduction of predators, where smaller size was less favorable and larger size was more favorable. In this particular experiment, the larger colonies would survive a centrifuge more easily, and so it evolved within, it was 200-something days. So you're just wrong about this, Mr. Hovind.
Fair question. Among such transitions, the evolution of multicellular organisms from single-celled ancestors and the further evolution of cellular differentiation set the stage for unprecedented increases in complexity, especially in land, plants, and animals. Hold on, this is what you call a snow job. I taught school 15 years, whether you're atheists believe it or not, and oftentimes you have kids answer an essay question. You can tell when they give an answer, but they have no clue, they don't really have the answer, they just are talking. How many of you ever did that on a test yourself? Now come on, be honest, okay? You give the longer...
That's literally all you do, Kent.
The answer you give, the more their teacher thinks, wow, he must know something about this, so they hope they count it right. Listen to the question, listen to the answer one more time.
Pure projection.
How did single-celled organ...
Oh my God. Google is not a teacher, Kent. It doesn't just pump out the answer, the exact answer you want. If this is how you do your science, it's no wonder you don't understand what science is.
Organisms like amoebas and stuff become multicellular. Among such transitions, the evolution of multicellular organisms from single-celled ancestors, which is the question, and the further evolution of cellular differentiation set the stage for unprecedented increases.
We've already answered every stage of this.
They didn't answer the question at all, did they?
No. You didn't do any research at all.
Didn't answer it at all.
You are looking for you're looking through one sentence on a Google search. This is your dishonesty, Kent.
It's one of those, well, it must have happened.
I just assumed it, yeah.
Had to happen. Think about it.
No, you're ignoring all of the evidence and pretending like this is somehow the evidence and this is the claim.
Read their question, read the answer. Okay, how about this one? What was the first multicellular organism on Earth? Now watch the answer they give. The first known single-celled organisms appeared on Earth about 3.5 billion years ago, roughly a billion years after Earth formed. More complex forms of life took longer to evolve, with the first multicellular animals not appearing until about 600 million years ago.
Right, because according to your model, we should see the shallow waters and the lower waters being very first, but no, we see millions and millions of years of single-celled organisms. And then, right after that, it took a long time, but after that, we start seeing multicellular animals like algal colonies and sea sponge colonies.
Did they answer how it happened?
I just went over these two experiments with you that should literally show it happening right in front of our faces in real time. Kent, read one scientific paper on this. Just one. It's a couple pages long, really. I think you're smart enough to do it.
No. They just said it happened.
No, we didn't just say it happened. We have thousands of papers in the literature that support this conclusion, and it's well known. So yes, you're going to see references to it in the literature without them having to list off every single discovery.
It's one of those SpongeBob. Just imagine. A single-celled became...
Just imagine. God released the flood waters. God buried everything. God created everything, even though we can't define which traits are created and which are adaptations.
multicelled. Can't you imagine? No.
Can't you imagine that this storybook from ancient Arabs is the actual scientific truth, and it trumps all the experts in the scientific fields, and this is the best way that your God could think of to communicate with us?
I cannot. Astrobiology magazine. How did multicellular life evolve? Let's see if they answer it. Google today, March 15, 2019. Scientists are discovering ways in which single cells might have evolved traits that entrenched them into group behavior. Now, is group behavior multicellular?
It can be, especially between cells that are really close. If they're attached, they can communicate a lot more effectively.
If 10 of us get together to lift a heavy log, does that mean we all become one organism? No. Okay, keep reading here. Paving the way for multicellular life. These discoveries could shed light on how complex extraterrestrial life might evolve on alien worlds. Oh, so it might happen someplace else in space. Okay. Researchers
Again, we've literally seen it happen multiple times in laboratories.
detailed these findings in October 24th issue of journal Science. Oh, so they published it in a science journal. It's got to be true. Got to be true. Who would argue with that? Okay. The first...
What that means is that it's went past peer review, which means that you get lots of experts to agree with your findings, which you cannot do, Mr. Hovind.
known single-celled organisms appeared on Earth about 3.5 billion years ago, roughly a billion years after Earth formed. They're repeating somebody else's answer. More complex forms of life took longer to evolve, with the first multicellular organisms not appearing until 600 million years ago. Guys, the question was, how did multicellular life evolve? You're not answering the question. You're avoiding the question, aren't they? Watch,
this
just a little more in this article.
Hold on. This just betrays how uneducated you are, Kent, because your base level of biological education is so poor that to answer these questions, you're literally just typing it into Google and going with the first answer that comes up. You have no other way of investigation even occurs to you, let alone deeper investigation. Because guess what? I got these two studies that show it happening in real time from two different mechanisms.
Well, I said it appeared, right? That's all. Huh?
Duck what? Did they say just appeared, right?
It appeared.
Yeah.
Shuck and jive.
Juck and jive?
Shuck.
Chuck? I don't understand what you're
Shuck and
saying.
jive. They get out of
Shuck
the
and
way.
jive, get out of the way? I never heard that before. Okay.
They're avoiding the question.
Avoiding the question. Okay. The first known single-celled organisms appeared on Earth, and then the multicellular came later. They're just restating it. The evolution
Kent's avoiding the evidence.
Watch this now. The evolution of multicellular life from simpler unicellular microbes was a pivotal moment in the history of biology. The question was how.
Kent, this isn't a scientific paper. This is a summary of science. And it's not marketed towards creationists because guess what? You guys are 0.002% of the scientists. So no one cares. So they're writing summaries for people who already accept the scientific consensus.
How did it happen? Don't tell me, oh, this was a pivotal moment. How did it happen? They're missing the question deliberately.
I would love to speak with you one-on-one about this. I'm sure we will in just a couple days here. We've seen it happen, Ken.
Pivotal moment in the history of biology and has drastically reshaped the planet's ecology. Again, they're just assuming it happened and going on from there. Go back and read the question. How?
No, you're assuming your fairy tale happened and going on from there. We are testing our hypothesis, and we have actually gotten results, and we have actually literally observed in real time.
Did multicellular life evolve? Gee whiz. Good thing you're not my student. You'll be taking this class again and again and again and again and again. Okay. The evolution of
no one would hire you to teach science except other creationists, Kent. That's why you don't have a degree in this, because you would fail regular biology.
However, one mystery about multicellular organisms is why cells did not return back to single-celled life. Hold it. It's a mystery why they didn't return back. Guys, you never told me how they became multicellular.
This article didn't, but there are several experiments that prove it, and I'm sure you're just ignoring that. The mystery about why they didn't revert? Because if they arose in the first place, if they were selected for in the first place, they're in conditions that favor that. Now, we're looking for specifics, but we know how it happens. We don't know exactly whether there was multicellular life evolved from predation in the actual fossil record, but we've seen it happen in a lab.
You just said, oh, it happened, and we're not sure why they didn't go back. Stop. You missed the question. How did it happen? Unicellularity is clearly successful. In other words, there's a whole bunch of unicellular organisms. You know, bacteria, paramecium, there's like bazillions of them in the world. You've probably got a trillion of them in your body. Okay? No question, it is successful, I agree. Could you entertain the thought that maybe it was designed and it works really good? No, I can't entertain that thought. I'm sorry, okay. Unicellular organisms are much more abundant than multicellular organisms. There's more of them than there is of us. I would agree.
It is really good. That's why they persist, Kent.
And have been around for at least an additional 2 billion years. Who made up that story? And where's the date on these single-celled organisms that they're finding?
In the rock strata.
Said the lead study author, Eric Libby, a mathematical biologist. A mathematical biologist.
Is that seriously? You don't know what that is? You don't understand that there are math equations that apply to genetics and biochemistry, Ken? Even if we're just talking ecology here, even if we're just talking pH and blood levels, I mean, don't even get me started on the medical field. Oh my God.
What? At the Santa Fe Institute in New Mexico. Oh, so what is the advantage of being multicellular and staying that way? Hold, Mr. Libby. The question was, how did it happen? Not why didn't they go back, and not, boy, this made a good advantage. How did it happen? You're missing the question, Mr. Libby. To answer this question is usually cooperation, as cells benefited more from working together than they would from living alone. Hold it, Mr. Libby. If cells
I think he's getting to the point.
Benefit more from working together than living alone, then why are there more single-celled organisms than there are multicellular? I think the single-celled ones are doing fine. And how did they become multicellular? Well, I finally found one website that gave sort of an answer. They said, well, there are two theories of how it happened. One theory is aggregative development. So the unicellulars just kind of aggregated together. Okay. The other one is clonal development. Oh, these are both theories. No evidence for either one. But
no, we see these behaviors in the lab. That's why there's names for it. We see unicellular organisms that are from different parents adhering to each other, creating colonies. We also see unicellular organisms multiplying, and they stay attached to each other as propagules.
How did this happen? So this website, let's stick together. How did animals evolve from single-celled organisms? That's the question. Okay, let's see what they say. All animals descended from a common ancestor. They did? This is one of those just so statements.
No, it's just like when we're talking about gravity, we're going to assume you know what gravity is. We're not going to establish and go back to every single experiment of gravity every time we mention it, Kent. This is a little rhetorical device you use. I'm sure you know what you're doing.
From a common ancestor that made the leap from living as a single cell to becoming something more complicated. I was in a debate one time, and I asked the question, how did life evolve? And the answer from the professor, I forget which one debate I was in, he said, going from non-living to living is a giant...
You know how life evolved, Kent. You know exactly how life evolved. You agree with it. Differentiation and adaptation with genes. A change in allele frequency through breeding populations, okay? That's how life evolved. Or are you asking, how did life begin?
Mother may I step into evolution theory. It's a what? A giant Mother May I step. You ever play that game? Mother May I? You gotta be kidding. No, they're not kidding. Made the leap from living as
the scientific consensus is not kidding with you, Ken.
Single cell to becoming something more complicated with many cells working together. At first, such a creature would likely have been made from clusters of cells that all had the same function. Eventually, however, different cells took on different roles. Hold it. How did this happen? You're just stating it happened. I'm not buying that. I'd like a little more of the, science is things we can see, study, test, observe, demonstrate.
We literally observe it happening. We can see it happening. We might not know how it happened. The guy is dead on the floor. We have a murder mystery here. We don't know exactly what happened. We know he's dead. We know something killed him.
Straight? How did it happen? And where's the scientific evidence? Eventually, they took on...
We have experiments showing differentiation and evolution. Then we see it happening in the fossil record. And you're sat there wondering, still wondering, somehow, how it all happened.
On different roles, okay. And today, many animals have many organ systems. I would agree. Each made up of specialized cell types. I would agree. They're heart muscle cells and bone cells and nerve cells. I agree. We are made up of different cell types. How did this happen was the question.
And they all have the same DNA. Literally the same genome in every single one of your cells except red blood cells, which don't have a nucleus. They just have different regulation of those exact same genes.
How the ancestors of animals transitioned from being single cell to multicellular, however, is poorly understood. I'll give you one better than that. It didn't happen. See, the single-celled organisms were designed to be single-celled. And the multi-celled...
How is that doing one better? You're just saying, oh, it didn't happen, there's nothing to talk about, nothing to see here. Deny, deny, deny.
Cellular were designed to be multicellular. And it's been that way ever since, and they've been working fine. Working fine. Are there any...
Except we show that it can the bridge can actually happen, and we've observed it.
Two-celled organisms, I type in. This is today, okay? The 15th of March, 2019. Are there any two-celled organisms? What's their answer? Unicellular, single, organisms are organisms that have one cell. We knew that, okay? They are divided into two quite different types from different classification kingdoms.
What? No model predicts two-celled organisms except this fake straw man model that you made up in your mind.
The prokaryotes, bacteria and archaea, have cells with no nucleus and a simple cell structure. Eukaryotes, oh, Mr. Nelson's going to love this one, the sun god. Eukaryotes have a nucleus and a more complex cell structure. Did they answer the question? Are there any two-celled organisms?
Right. We see this trait pop up in the fossil record, and then we see a lineage of organisms that are progressively changing that conserve this trait. And you can't explain that.
They avoided the question. Guys?
Google avoided his question. They say there's no such thing as dumb questions. This is one of those examples of a dumb question. This is not a question anyone would ask unless you don't understand anything about evolution.
Source is from Wikipedia. Are there any two-celled organisms? Two. Are there any? Or three-celled? You told me there's two different types of single-celled organisms.
No, when they stick together, they don't just duplicate once. That would be two cells, one duplication. One duplicates once, and now there's two. Guess what? They keep duplicating, so there's going to be a lot of them. Bullshit baffles brains. I don't know what to say here.
That was not the question. Are there any two-celled? A single cell is unbelievably complex. Unbelievable. You can just...
And we see a progressive complexity going through the fossil layers. What a coincidence.
Study a cell the rest of your life and never learn it all. Back in Darwin's day, Darwin thought the cell was kind of like a little glob of jelly. It's just real simple. The more we get into it, the more they realize, oh my. The skin on the cell, we're talking real tiny here, okay? You probably have 100 trillion cells in your body. 100 trillion. There are only 7 billion people in the world. You probably have more cells.
Again, the argument from ignorance and incredulity. He's personally incredulous. He doesn't understand how this happens, which again belies his lack of education, because we do understand how all of this works, just naturally, all on its own, by chemistry.
Cells in your hand than there are people in the world.
Just because you don't understand how it works does not mean that it doesn't work the way that the experts say. And just because you don't understand it doesn't mean God didn't.
Okay? Each cell is beyond comprehension complex. Just the skin of the cell looks like this. It has all kinds of interactions. Stuff has to get from the inside to the outside, has to pass messages back and forth, pass information back and forth, take in food, give off wastes. Each cell of your body is beyond imagination in its complexity. Why can't you say, wow, what a mighty God we serve? I don't have a problem doing that. I don't have a problem at all.
Because you've just assumed God. You're doing the exact same thing. This is why I said it was progression at the beginning. Because you're doing the exact same thing that you are accusing the others of, the scientists of doing. You twist the words of a Google result and you say, well, they're just assuming this. They're just stating it outright and just going with it, and that's their evidence. But that's what you're doing with God. You just start with that presupposition, and that's the worst kind of science, because it's not science at all.
I can look at a cell under the microscope and say, wow, the guy who designed this is smart. Like, really smart. We don't even, all of the scientists in the world combined.
Show me that guy. It's pretty simple.
Don't even understand everything there is to know about a cell. Single cell. That's just to understand it. That's not to make.
I can show you a car maker. I can show you a watch maker. I can show you the whole history of their development. You can't even show me one God. You can't even show it exists.
Make one. How long would it take you to learn everything about a car? Long time. If you knew everything about the car, would that prove the car made itself by chance?
Cars don't replicate. They don't have sex with each other and have baby cars, Kent.
No.
Not close.
Not even close. Okay. How can I explain it differently? How did this happen?
Let's go to the next question.
Okay. They're not going to get that one.
Again, just in case you're watching this, we observed it happening. And we observed it happening under selection pressures such as predation and size selection based on settling selection. As happened in this experiment.
We got a lot to do.
We got a lot to do. Okay, here we go.
That's how you define how.
How do you define how? Okay. See, Bill Clinton now. What do you mean by how? What do you mean by is? Oh, gee. Okay. Jonathan. Hi.
Okay. Well, there you see the mind of a pseudoscientist.